Hey Claire, I'm gonna find your mom and I'm gonna Okay, today we're gonna look at the KAK Industries full auto conversion kit and what goes into installing one. We're also gonna look at a couple different lower receivers. One of them is a Bushmaster, which is on the left, and I believe this is an Anderson on the right. So the main thing that we're gonna look at here with these receivers is the cutout. You'll notice here and here. The Bushmaster already has this cutout, and if we look, they've also went ahead and marked it for full auto. So that's one of the lowers that comes ready to be drilled for full auto for those that are properly licensed. The conversion kit has the auto sear and the appropriate disconnect and trigger for full auto. This particular kit is ambidextrous, which is going to allow easy selection between safe, semi, and full auto fire. If you look at the safety itself, you can see it's a bit different. So this is just a pretty standard trigger, disconnector, you'll notice this is a little different than a standard hammer, and it has this notch. That notch is what catches on the auto sear. Here's the auto sear itself. You're required to drill a pin in a specific place in the lower receiver to accept this part. It also comes with the retaining pin. This screw is only in the ambidextrous kit and allows you to attach the other lever. In addition, we have the spring kit, also from KAK Industries. And now we're going to put this all together. We'll take our hammer, and we know that the bottom of the spring is always going to rest against the bottom of the receiver. So if it was inside, it would be like this. So we can kind of determine where the spring needs to be. And don't be afraid that you're going to break something. It is a spring. It will return back to its original shape, but don't get crazy. So we're just going to put it over one side, and it went over the other. Make sure that it is like this. If you'd like to see the orientation of that, it would be there. Next, we're going to find the fatter end of this spring. If you notice, there is one side usually a little bit larger than the other. In this case, it's here. There's a pocket that accepts that here in the trigger. Press it in very, very tightly. You may even hear a little pop, which is good. That means it's seated well. The next part of this is to add the disconnector. And you can see where it's going to go, just on the spring, lining up the hole. So it's going to be like that. What I do is I take a Q-tip and I break it. And then I ensure everything is lined up. And I place the Q-tip in here and pull through until it's just holding everything together. I'll break one side off. I'll break the other side off. So now everything's held together without a slave pin. Before we drop that in, let's go ahead and put the hammer spring on. In this case, we also know when it's in the receiver, the hammer needs to be going this way. So something needs to be pushing it that way. The spring doesn't work whenever it's like this. You're just unwinding it. That's how we know it goes here. One side and the other. And it'll freely swivel. And you can see how it would be when inside the firearm, causing that resistance. So we can't do it on the Anderson, so we'll switch to our Bushmaster. We know the gun is going to be firing that way, so our trigger needs to be orientated. So we're just lining it up so it'll drop right through until we can see our Q-tip. And then you can just kind of leave it until you find the appropriate pin. Since this is the conversion kit, you don't have the pins for the hammer or the trigger. So we need to use that from the prior trigger group. Now we're ready to put the pin through. I like to always make sure that I put both pins in the same direction. And that's so that the small notch is on the same side. From my understanding, it doesn't matter, but I've always put it to the left. And I always put it in from the right to the left. So what we're doing, you can even use the trigger itself to pull and also push on the disconnector at the same time. And we just want it to line up so we can see the Q-tip. You put it in. You may need to actually squeeze the trigger and your thumb to push that disconnector down far enough. But you also need to make sure that the Q-tip is lined up on the other side so that it will be able to push through. Now we're going in further, and we can just make sure that it's lined up on this side. You can see it's lined up. I should just be able to push it a little bit. Now we're going to put the hammer in. For the hammer, I like to use a punch. The reason we wanted it to be on the left is because the hammer spring is actually going to end up resting on that. I like to put my thumb about here and pinch it and just kind of allow it to push in. And you'll see that you'll get it lined up. In this case, I think I'm gonna try and skip using the punch, and we're just gonna go straight through. Looks like we got a little movement, that's good. Once again, we're gonna try and make sure it's lined up on the other side. If it's not going all the way through, we're gonna try our small, and I can tell that it's giving. So we're making sure we're lined up. And just need to push it through a little bit. You never want to let it hit this area. So I'll use something like this. And I'm going to show you a little trick that you can do now or after the receiver is built. But it mainly involves pulling on the hammer while pressing on the trigger. You're going to increase the amount of pressure after each pull. What this is doing is it's making sure that everything on the sear face down in here is as smooth as possible. If you ever feel a little bit of grittiness whenever you're pulling your trigger, more than likely it's something there. This usually wears out over time. This
Hello, please do not hang up the phone. This is an important message regarding your Google business. Hi, this is Clara with Voice Search. Are you currently enrolled or looking to sign up today?
Hey Claire, I'm gonna find your mom and I'm gonna So we're pulling, but we're not gonna let it hit this area, so you're catching it. You can even take something and put down in there to make sure, but that's gonna smooth the trigger a little bit. You notice it's hard to pull. But if you just do this a few times, you'll notice quite a difference from the standard trigger pull. Let's go ahead and release the spring tension so that we don't accidentally hit our receiver with the hammer. And let's look at the auto sear. This is the portion of the sear that interacts with the hammer as well as the bolt. In order to install this, we have to install our safety. In order for that to happen, we do need to cock it in and drop it in. Now that our safety's in, and we know that it's going to glide against that side, you can allow it to catch by going this way on that groove. See there? And then just push the sear into place. And we're going to pin it. And these are pretty tough springs, and it does require a little bit of force once you get it started on one side. It's hitting part of the spring that uses the pin as a detent. So what I like to do is give it a good couple whacks to get past that. Okay. Make sure we're still lined up. We're going to keep pushing through. And you can see that one went right in. Don't worry about the little bit of marring. You can see it just rubs off because this is brass. If we want to check full auto function, we need to cock it to the first step. You notice that it cocked the trigger. We fire and hold the trigger down. We go down. It should go past the first step at this point onto the auto sear. And then we're going to emulate the bolt hitting the auto sear. And we see that the hammer falls. Please like, share, and subscribe to see more videos like this.